What's going on, guys? Welcome back to yet another episode of AJ Porter Golf. This week we had James Nicholas on. So James is, he's actually pretty famous on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, but more importantly, he's a player, right? So he's played on DP World Tour, I believe Challenge Tour, and now he has Korn Ferry Tour status. So it was really good to sit down with him before he was getting ready to head off to the Bahamas. Tournament where he did unfortunately miss the cut, but he played phenomenal on the first day, and he's certainly shown that he's got the skill. James is just a really nice guy, and it was good to be able to sit down with him, talk about some of the difference makers and things that he thought would ultimately make the difference. Hope you enjoy. Cool. James, welcome to the podcast, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come on this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. So I wanted to get this rolling here. This is ultimately the, I think, 12th video now in a set of videos where our goal is to establish a question, that I've been asking guys on mini tours, high-level amateurs for years, right? What's the difference? It's kind of a fact-finding mission for golfers out there who want to elevate their game to the next level, whether it's that sophomore who wants to play Division I golf, scratch that wants to get to a plus, or a mini tour guy who's doing what you've been doing for the last few years, who's just scratching and clawing to get to the next level. So really excited to sit down with you and have a conversation about this. As we get started, I'd kind of like to honestly start off with what has seemed from the outside like a whirlwind of a year. So maybe kind of talk a little bit about that and maybe a little bit about your background as well.
Yeah, definitely. This story can probably go on for quite a bit, but starting at Q School last year, I did both Korn Ferry Tour Q School and DP World Tour Q School. I ended up getting the final stage. Let me backtrack a little bit. I've always been a believer of playing both if you had the financial means to do so, and it just gives you two chances at it, right? So you're not going into first stage being like, this is my only chance, all my eggs are in one basket, and it's make it or break it. So I ended up getting through first stage in France last year, flew back to the States for first stage in Alabama, and having that security of, okay, hey, I'm at least going to play second stage in DP. I ended up winning first stage of Korn Ferry Tour Q School, which gave me PGA Tour America status. So then that was another safety blanket where I was like, okay, now I have this backup plan. So I went back to second stage on DP, made it through second stage, then got my full DP World Tour card. And then I came back to second stage in the States, and I was like, oh, I'm going to play the DP World Tour even if I don't get my PGA Tour, like if I don't get my Korn Ferry Tour card. So I flew through second stage of Korn Ferry, finished second there, then got my Korn Ferry Tour card, but conditional, and a full DP World Tour card. So I ended up choosing to play DP World Tour over the conditional Korn Ferry. And it was, for me, I wouldn't say a no-brainer decision, but playing on the DP World Tour, I thought that I was going to have all these starts guaranteed because they said I have a full card. But then the first couple events come around, I didn't get into the field. And I was sitting there like, wait, what was going on? I thought I had a full DP World Tour card. But the way it worked now in pro golf is everybody's playing every event they can because there's so much uncertainty in pro golf. So I ended up being scooted back, my category, and scooted back and not getting into these events. So then I was like, oh, I wish I had actually gone and played Korn Ferry because at least I knew which events I was going to get into on Korn Ferry and they have a good reshuffle structure that I could have gone into. So all that being said, I ended up having a great season on the DP World Tour. I finished 5th in Italy, finished 12th in South Africa, finished I think 20th in Germany, had some really good chances to win, but didn't close the door and ended up losing my card. That was due to the fact that I didn't play that many events compared to everybody else, and also the fact that I didn't get into Rolex Series events and other bigger events that might, give you way more points. 30th in a Rolex Series event is the equivalent of finishing top 5 in a regular series, or maybe top 7 in a regular tour event. That point discrepancy was really tough to overcome, but again, I played enough events to keep my card out there, just didn't play well enough. Went back to Q School, missed that final stage of DP World Tour, and then came back to the States and I'm getting my full Korn Ferry Tour card. So that's the long story, a little bit longer than probably you wanted, but now we're here and we're ready to get to the Bahamas and start this Korn Ferry Tour season.
No, that's perfect, dude. There was a guy, I can't remember the name. He was on Rick Shields' podcast. He does some videos with him sometime. He kind of had the same kind of a deal where he was like, yeah, you get your DP World Tour card, but it's not like it's not like an actual DP World Tour card, because obviously it is, but
Hmm.
like it was pretty obvious the discrepancy, and you didn't really get into the same level of events or even have the same level of opportunity, regardless of how good you played. Like you obviously played very well, and it's still kind of crazy that you don't get to keep your card just because you haven't had the proper opportunity.
Exactly, and that's the bummer of it. But you know what? I had enough starts to keep my card, so there's going to be somebody who keeps their card with two starts, right? It happens. And if all it takes is one good week, and I didn't have that, but I had learned a lot, and I had one of the best years of my life out there, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, you played in the same Q school with our last guest that we just had, Dawson Jones. I actually think you grew up with him a little bit, playing
Yep.
some with him, right?
I practiced with him at final stage a couple weeks ago, and grew up playing against Dawson. Little fun fact: Dawson beat me like 7-6 in the Met Boys Championship on Shelter Harbor Island in New York, and I will never forget it because I was like, this kid is unbelievable. He's the next Tiger Woods. We were like 12 years old, and I wasn't
Yeah.
much of a golfer. I was a hockey player, and Dawson was such a stud. So it was kind of full circle to go back and play a practice round with him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys both obviously played the same event. I heard from Dawson that it was, just playing pretty tough, windy, and it was a very important to drive the ball well. If I saw correctly, whenever I was actually following both you guys, that you got off to a little bit of a rough start, but just battled back. Is that pretty accurate? I think Sunday was pretty important for you. If you want to talk a little bit
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that.
it was like this the whole
Yeah.
way around, right? So this being the start, I was 200 through eight, cruising. I looked at the leaderboard on nine green, and I was in third place or second place, and I was like, "This is gonna be a piece of cake. I'm gonna get my PGA Tour card and bypass the Korn Ferry Tour. This is gonna be great." Ended up making a double on that hole. Got back to even, bogeyed one, bogeyed two, and I was standing on 3T, being like, "What just happened?" Right, going from third to 120th in a matter of three holes was not an easy pill to swallow. I ended up bringing it back, and I had a pretty solid finish in that round. But again, I was sitting in 30th after round one, so not bad. After that roller coaster ride, had a mediocre round two, was sitting in a good spot, and then had a horrible round three, and was in 110th or maybe 100th. So sitting that night was really tough for me because I've made it to final stage of Q school four times. I've won first stage. I finished second at second stage twice. I've cruised through to final stage almost every time I've played Q school. Right, like I said, 4 out of 5 times. And the one time I didn't make it through Q school to final stage was I had a broken driver in the middle of the second stage. I had no idea. I was driving it all over the map. And again, not an excuse because I probably wouldn't have made it through anyway because I was putting terribly and chipping about it too. So, but again, not ideal to have a cracked driver and you realize in round three. But that being said, I was really proud of myself for making the final stage, but I'd always had this obstacle to overcome, which was finishing inside that top 40 and getting a full card, getting guaranteed starts. And going to that fourth round, I was just on the outside looking in, super bummed. Like, oh, this is another year where I made it through to final stage, didn't get my card. I was just like, at that point, I knew I was proposing to my now fiance. So I had that little
Congrats, by the way.
yeah, thank you, wanting to do this for us and wanting to have a place to play, wanting to be able to make a schedule so I can actually plan a wedding and have that, a little bit more organized. I mean, I texted my coach. I was like, I'm going to need to shoot a 65 tomorrow, and I was doubting myself. I don't think I was doubting myself. It was more so the fact that I knew it was a really steep uphill battle. I hadn't shot anything better than one under par in those courses. It was super windy. He was playing super tough, very grainy, tough conditions, playing against the best players in the world. That round was the best round I've had as a pro golfer. Definitely the most clutch, definitely the most nerve wracking, definitely the most intimidating, all the above. And to be able to pull through when times are tough was awesome and a true testament, honestly, to all the hard work that I've put in and gave myself that inner belief that I know I have, but just a little reminder that, hey, I can do it out there when it matters. And that was probably the happiest I've been on a golf course after that round, was getting in, asking my caddy if it was enough, and going to the clubhouse, looking at the scoreboard, and then realizing I've got a full Korn Ferry Tour card this year and an opportunity to go chase a PGA Tour card.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, man. I'd like to just sit on that for a second. So What we're kind of trying to do here is develop a list, right, of things that we feel like are difference makers. And one of the really important ones is mental. I know playing competitive golf, like it's incredibly mental. So you mentioned a little bit about self-belief that's been brought up before. You mentioned, being able to pull through in the clutch, that sort of a deal. I mean, what do you do, if anything, mentally away from the golf course and then also on the golf course? And then how important do you feel the mental side of the game is to what you do?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of mental coaches in the past. Everybody has their own recipe, their own belief system, their own way of doing things. And what I've discovered with working with these mental coaches is that from my other sports that I played, football and hockey and lacrosse and basketball, all these team sports, I really thrive when I'm behind. If we're down by one in a hockey game with a third period, 2 minutes left, like get me on the ice and I feel like I can go and make it happen. Put me in a football game and we're in a fourth quarter, we're driving. It's like I'm not nervous. It's more so let's go do this thing. Basketball, if I need a free throw to win, I'm probably gonna miss it because I was horrible at basketball. But these other sports, I really enjoyed playing and I learned a lot. And then in golf, when my back's against the wall, I tend to play pretty well. There's obviously going to be times when I don't and things don't go my way, but for the most part, I've done a really good job when I'm behind and I need to go chase. But like this Q school, I was 2 under in third place after the first 8 holes. I think I saw the leaderboard and I was like, wow, I'm in a great place. My mindset went from let's just play to let's not lose it.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
Yep.
defense almost mechanism or defense mindset where I'm here, let's not mess it up. Versus I'm in 110th going to the final round, all I can go is up.
That was going to be the next question I asked, was if you felt like that messed you up, because I can't tell you how many times I've done. Like, I had a tournament this year where I was, I don't know, 4 under through 14 or something like that. I ended up shooting even par, and because I saw the leaderboard, and a couple friends were like, oh, people come up to you, whatever, like that sort of a deal. So I've started to realize, for me personally, like even as I've gotten better, like how important being able to stay present and just how hard it is.
It's so hard because in these other sports, if you're behind, if you're playing in a high stakes, whether it's lacrosse, whatever game you might be playing in, it's reactionary, right? Tennis would be a good example, right? If you faulted on your first serve on match point and you're about to double, like you're going to be nervous on that second serve because you're thinking about not messing up. And that's where the greats are able to just put that behind them and just continue with their routine, whether it's through breath work, whether it's through going through the routine and trusting the process. It's similar to tennis on that serving aspect, not so much in the rest of the game because you're not reacting to something, you're actually doing. So you have to choose when you walk into that shot. You have to choose when you're pulling the trigger. You have to choose all these other variables. Hockey, which is I love that sport, so I'll keep using that as an example. You're reacting to the puck. You're reacting to other players. You're reacting to your teammates. You don't really have time unless it's a shootout where you're choosing what to do. It's all reaction, and that happens unconsciously, subconsciously, just split second decisions. Golf, you've got 6 hours over, well, call it 24 hours, right? 6 hours a day over 4 days. And then if you want to talk about practice rounds, we can even say this is 54 hours of actual thought wrapped around this one event nonstop for 7 days, 4 of them being the tournament day, 3 of them being warm up practice days. You can drive yourself crazy if you're not in the right mindset, if you're not focused on the right things. And to answer your question, to go back to how I do it, and it's hard. Like I focus on my breath. I try to get external, meaning I look at the trees, I look at the birds, I listen to the wind. I try to focus on things that I'm not actively doing. It's more allowing. So I'm listening to the wind because that's something else that's doing it. I'm not forcing myself to listen. It's just allowing these senses to sort of bring me back to the present moment, like you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So I'd like to, kind of go through what we have of a list so far. I kind of want to get your take on them and then see what you think are the differentiating factors on why you've been able to find success, and then maybe, others around you have been able to find success as well. So the first one that's been brought up, Scott Fawcett brought it up. I've had Ryan Sullivan, a couple other guys disagree with it. They say it's a little bit lower, but is 180 ball speed. Scott said, you need to have 180 mile an hour ball speed to play at the highest level. Ryan Sullivan, Tim O'Neill, a couple of guys were saying, yeah, it's, maybe somewhere in the area of the low 170s. What's your take? Is ball speed critical?
Well, I mean, I love what Scott does. I love what all these guys do. My opinion might be different than theirs, but look at the lowest ball speed player in the PGA Tour, and then tell me what that is, and that's what you need to be in the PGA Tour. It's probably 160, right? So there's no set formula to this. Yes, I would like to have a 190 ball speed and hit it dead straight every single time. Why not be
We all
200 ball speed and hit it dead straight every time? I would love, like, the more the merrier. I hover around 180 ball speed, and I think that that is enough to play at the highest level. I can't speak for the guy who has that 160 ball speed, who is able to play better than me on a day-to-day basis and is a constant, member of the PGA Tour, because that's not my game. He makes up for it by probably making every single putt inside 10 feet or being, 95% inside 10 feet. Like, that's remarkable. My game might be different. We all make up for it in different ways, and there's not a one robotic set of systems that you need to make it to the PGA Tour, and that's just proven by the guys that are out there. You have lefties, you have righties, you've got guys who chip cross-handed, you've got guys that putt the opposite way that they hit the ball. It's a really fascinating group of individuals who make up the PGA Tour and make up high-level pro golf, and you know it, I know it, we all know it. It's more so just doing what you do and doing it better rather than molding your game into something that might not be your forte.
That's a really interesting take. So Carl Morris, who's mental coach, and Ryan Sullivan, who you maybe or maybe don't know from playing many tours and stuff, when he said, whenever he was playing the 2013 U.S. Open, he was worried about what the Konica Minolta BizHub swing vision guy was going to say about his golf swing and all that sort of stuff, and that was something he regretted. Carl kind of said that, I had asked him the question, do you think that anybody could become sort of a Lee Westwood or a Louis Oosthuizen? Those were guys that he works with. And his thing was to exactly your point, which is, you can't model yourself after anyone else. You just sort of have to try and become the best version of you that you can be. So I think that's a really interesting take that you were saying that as well.
Yep, 100%. If you start chasing something else, you'll become something else, and that's not what got you where you are.
So for you, what do you think makes your game work? Like, why have you been able to grit it out? Obviously, there's a certain element of just sheer work and determination, physical talent. Like, we're throwing those things kind of not out the window, but what do you think works for you?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my work ethic. So I wasn't born a golfer. I wasn't, I didn't walk out of the womb shooting 65 every single day like some of these guys that seemed. Everybody puts in the work, but in college, once I quit football, I was a mid-70 shooter in college. And then to get from there to where I am now, I attribute that to the work that I put in. While at college with a pretty hefty workload, I was pre-med, taking bio, orgo, biochem, anatomy, physiology, osteology, all these classes that took a lot of time and effort studying wise. I was in the team room indoors because I went to school in the Northeast, doing this simultaneously. I would hit shots, then go do one problem on my P set, then hit shots, then go do one problem on my P set. So I lived in the team room. When there was no snow on the ground, even when there was snow on the ground, I'd go to the range, I'd shovel off snow, or I'd bring my shag bag when they say course was closed, I'd sneak around the gates. Like, I put in the work to get here, but now I attribute all that success once my game was refined after the fact to my putting and my driving. When I putt it well and I drive it well, I hit it really well. But again, like, me saying that's really weird because I also think I'm a great iron player. I think I have a great short game.
Well, you have to have everything to play on the Korn Ferry or DP. Like, you have to have everything to play on Korn Ferry or DP World or PGA. Like, it's not like you're not going to.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the line's so thin. Where is the line? What is the line? It's, being ranked 100th in driving versus 1 in driving, or maybe not 1, because honestly, Rory McIlroy hits the ball just like unbelievably well, but maybe let's call it 10 in driving. So from 100 to 10 is a matter of decimal points. It's so thin, the line, and you hitting one more fairway around might be the determining factor, being 100th in driving to 10th in driving. And that's the crazy in the pro golf, is that it's such a small margin, and there's such a small margin of error. So for me, my dedication, the way I go about my tournament weeks, the way I go about my practice routines, the way I go about my everyday life with my health and wellness, athlete is something that I take every single day just to plug them. I mean, it's a huge component of what I do, right? The way I eat. My girlfriend, or my fiance now, was a health coach, so she got me on this great diet and nutrition plan. So all of these things that I'm intaking to my body from a health and wellness standpoint, Cherry Bundy, right? They lowers my inflammation, and these are just brands I'm not affiliated with. It's just like this is what I take on a daily basis to lower my inflammation, And then on top of my stretching routine, I do a stretching routine every single morning for 30 minutes. I have a trainer. So all these things I think just get me that little extra step closer to my goal, which is again being the number one player in the world. And I've got a long, long, long journey to get there. But again, the journey doesn't seem that long because it can change in 3 weeks. If you win 3 times on the Korn Ferry Tour, and you happen to do it week after week, you're on the PGA Tour, you continue that trend, you can be number one in the world in a couple of weeks. Obviously, that's not really the reality, but the possibility is there. And I think that if you work toward that goal, and just to sidetrack a little bit, I have a lot of juniors who DM me on Instagram. They ask me, how do I get to be a professional golfer? So I ask them, number one, what's your goal? And they might say to be in the PGA Tour. I said, okay, well, where do you have to be in your college days to get to the PGA Tour? Now with PGA Tour U, you got to be the number one player in PGA Tour U. Now bring that back to high school. In order to be number one on the PGA Tour, you need to go to a top 15 university. Because I went to Yale, I won 6 times. I wouldn't have been close to number one because our strength of schedule is so weak. So you got to go to top 15 university. How are you going to do that in high school? You got to be one of the best players in AJGA and get recruited. How are you going to do that to where you are now? And they answer like, oh, I'm practicing 2 hours a day. I'm like, okay, well, if you think that that's going to get you there, all the power to you. I don't believe that that's the case. And then I ask them, do you think that, because again, if you want to get recruited to these, let's call it top 10 school, they have 2 to 3 recruits a year. That's 30 kids in each class. Do you think that there are 28 kids, 29 kids that are working harder than you in this country or in this world? And they're like, oh yeah, there's probably a lot more kids that are working harder than me. I go, okay, great. Do you think that you just have this God-given talent that you're just far and above better than everybody else? And they're always like, no, because nobody believes that they just have anything God-given because we like to think that we work for everything. So then I go, okay, well then why are you asking me this question? If you're clearly not working hard, you know you're not working hard, you're not doing any of the work that you're answering these questions for yourself. So only you are going to be able to tell yourself what you need to do and how hard you need to work, and if you actually are working as hard as you can and as hard as you say you are. And again, that's just something that I like to ask people, and then I ask them myself that every single day. Do I think I worked as hard as I possibly could today? No, today wasn't one of those days where I put balls to the wall, did everything I could. But I'm gonna cut myself some slack. I just got back off a plane ride. I'm unpacking my bags. I got 4 suitcases I'm looking at right now, sprawled out over my bedroom floor. So I'm gonna give myself a break. But these next 4 days, no excuses. I gotta get back to work and gotta get ready for the Bahamas because there's a clock's ticking. It's to answer your question and going back to it is my work ethic. I think is what's got me here.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I can definitely draw a lot of similarities. Like I can tell you've played a lot of hockey only because, so good friend of mine and just had him on the show not too long ago, a guy named Jeff Levicchio. So he played 10 years professional hockey all around the world. He trains Kyron Williams in the NFL. He trains Tony Adams, trains a lot of NHL guys. And his biggest thing was details, right? So paying attention to the details every single day. Like, since after his podcast, like I realized for me, I work full time right now, but like there are mobility things that I could have been doing in the evenings. I could have been optimizing my sleep better. You mentioned your nutrition. I'd like to actually sit on your nutrition for a second, maybe talk a little bit about your nutrition, and then also just a little bit more of a plug, if you will, on the supplements and stuff you're taking, because I think people will find that interesting in terms of reducing inflammation. Like I take cold plunges to do that, but I'd be interested to see what you talk about there.
Yeah, I can run you through. So I've got 8 sleep mattress that keeps my mattress cool to 65 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the night, which has been a huge game changer in my health and wellness recovery standpoint. I try to get 100% sleep score between 9 hours and 10 hours of sleep every single night. So that's on the sleep part. I also wear a Whoop to track my strain, track my recovery, and that. Then going back to nutrition, I don't eat any fried foods. I don't eat any seed oils. I try to limit more lenient on it now. I will have, a healthy dessert every once in a while, or ice
Sure.
cream, right? That's sort of my kryptonite there. Every once in a while, but during tournament weeks, from Monday to Sunday, it is locked in. I will eat heavy protein, good amount of carbs to keep me going for those 18 whole days, those long 6 hour rounds, and then a good hearty veggie, leafy green vegetables. So just a balanced meal, right? I like to have my protein making up the majority of my plate, carbs, which would be another third of it, and then a veggie, other third. So pretty simple. Then in terms of my supplements that I take, I've started taking Project Blueprint, which is Brian Johnson's daily stack, I think he calls it. So I look into that. I don't know if it's for everyone, but look into that. And then Athlete is my daily supplement, my daily vitamin mix, my daily longevity mix is it's got ashwagandha, vitamin C, B12, B6, everything that your body needs in one stick pack that I pour into water and I drink every morning. And then I'll drink another one after the round or during the round if I need be. So during the round, Athlete is definitely something that I rely on to one, lower my inflammation, two, boost my cognitive function, and then three, also my endurance and energy going forward for these long days. LMNT, there's some studies about LMNT recently that they have a lot of maltodextrin in it, which I used to use LMNT. I love the taste of it, love it, but I'm relying more on Athlete now after those new studies that came out about LMNT. Also, I've been taking Cherry Bundy gummies to reduce my inflammation. Cherry Bundy drink. There are 45 tart cherries in this condensed little bottle that you
Oh, it's
basically
like
take.
Phil Mickelson's thing.
What'd you say?
It's like Phil Mickelson's thing that he's
Similar, yeah,
doing with it.
exactly.
Yep.
Phil's thing is gummies. I do the liquid and the gummies from Cherry Bundy. They're great. Love them. Aloha bars are my snack on the course. I also take Chomps beef jerky, grass-fed beef jerky on the course. And other than that, there's nothing that I mean, Symbiotica, vitamin C packs. They also have longevity mushrooms and creatine. I will take those as well in the mornings. And glutathione. So those are, I have a ton of stuff, and I made my own ice bath, my own cold plunge that I try to do every morning. Haven't been great at that over the last couple months because I've been a little bit too much of a wuss. It's good for the mental power. That's like the biggest thing about it, I think.
I'm gonna have to look up. I'm sitting here looking at my supplement stack that I take every day over here to the right. I'm gonna have to look up a couple of those because I actually had never heard of them. So I might have to add them into the
Yeah, I'll give you a
repertoire.
list after this call.
Yeah, perfect. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, the last sort of theory that I have, it's a little bit of taken from Scott, but I've also just been doing a bunch of research. I'm a guy who can make, say, 6, 7 birdies around and shoot even par, right? Like it's like this.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of seeing in the data, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, that it's almost, I don't want to say more important to avoid bogeys than it is to make birdies, but I'm kind of curious whether you think making birdies is more important or bogey avoidance is more important.
I don't know. I mean, if you make zero birdies and zero bogeys in a round, you shoot even par. So if you make seven birdies and seven bogeys, you shoot even par, right? I think you got to look at your game, right? If you're making a lot of birdies, then it's not like you don't want to play for bogey avoidance, right? If you play to not make bogeys, you're going to make bogeys. Does that make sense?
No, it
It's
does
like
make
when
sense.
you think about the trouble, you hit it in the trouble. When you think about, oh, let's not hit it here, you hit it there. It's like don't think about a purple elephant. You're probably thinking about a purple elephant right now. So to me, you might want to practice in a way that's going to stop you from making these bogeys, but I don't think that's your mindset. Your mindset might be, and this is something that I actually worked on with my mental coach, it's what club am I gonna hit, or what shot am I gonna hit that's gonna give me the best chance of making a birdie. I didn't say it's gonna make me make a birdie. It's gonna give me the best chance at making a birdie, and you do that in every single shot. And once you miss that birdie putt, or if you miss that birdie putt, it becomes what's my next shot shape or goal or decision that's gonna give me the best chance of making par. And again, if you don't make the par, you say that same exact quote for bogey and double, because again, you're just trying to make the best score you can, and par is irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, I
One,
mean, that's it, right? If you went, there was a in Q school, there was a par five that got converted to a par four, and I'm like, wow, I got to go for it in two, and I'm like, wait, if this was a par five, I'd probably be laying up. Why is that changing my approach to the hole? Because if it was a par five and I laid up, I would be upset walking away with a five. But if it was a par four and I made a five, it was an impossible par four. I'd be like, oh, bogey's not that bad. So there's something there. And that's for you to find out and you to think about. And you guys just go back to your, you know, the drawing board and be like, wow, why does the par change my mindset on what I want to shoot or how I'm going to play this hole or vice versa? Because you should make the plan on what, what's going to make you shoot the lowest score in that hole possible.
yeah, no, I think that's good. Have you figured out any sort of a way to harness that back against the wall any earlier? I probably had like 5 tournaments this year where I'm like 4 or 5 out of the cut with 8 holes to play, and I end up being like 5 under in my last 8, or I'm like
Yeah.
4 or 5 down in a match, and I end up coming back and winning. Like, it's like there's another gear there, but I can't figure out how to get into it if my back's not up against the wall kind of deal. Have you figured out anything with that?
I think every day I'm going to keep figuring out more. For me, the first bit is not caring. I don't care what you think. I don't care what my family, I don't care what anybody thinks about my golf game. I care, and I'm just going to go play the best I can. And whether I shoot 95 and get embarrassed, I need to believe that nothing that anybody says or thinks or does matters. There's a lot of haters on social media that say I can't do this and I play bad, and like, I need to block that out. Once that happens and there's no expectation, there's no added pressure, you have this like weight lifted off your chest. And then I play these little games with myself. So at second stage of Q school, I just kept telling myself, I'm two behind these other guys I'm playing with. I didn't look at the leaderboard. I just said I'm two behind them. Once I got to tied, I said I'm back to two down. And I did that, and I ended up beating both of them pretty good. And it was one of those things where I was like, that's how I need to play golf. I'm going to be behind those guys that I can see, not the leaderboard that keeps changing every 2 seconds. And I'm playing these mind games. Okay, hey, I know I might have a 4-shot lead over these guys now, but I'm two back. Let's go see if I can claw back 2 more shots. And it's that I'm chasing rather than I'm two up. Okay, let's just make sure we keep these guys behind me. Like, no, let's go chase them and keep going.
No, I think that's great, man. So want to be conscious of your time here as we kind of wrap up. I just wanted to give you a chance to shout out any other sponsors, partners, anything like that you work with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just signed a contract with Protivity and Icon Pass, so those are two new PEC sponsors for me this year. ToochUSA.com. If you guys live in the Northeast and Connecticut area and want to play an Unreal Par 3 tournament, he runs one at his house. So go check out ToochUSA.com. Definitely, he's a legend. Definitely go check out Tooch. And then Pepe Auto Group, Joe Pepe and his brother Sal are members of my course at Westchester Country Club back home. So they've been incredibly generous for me. They run a Mercedes and a Genesis dealership back home in the Westchester County. So I appreciate them. And then Jones Sporting Co. I carry their bag and wear their hat. And honestly, they make the best buckets in the league. So Jones, and then obviously the best bags. They've been around for years, and I think everybody knows that they make great golf bags. Other than that, Grayson Clothiers clothes. So I'm lucky to definitely be stocked on all these great apparels, and Grayson definitely keeps me dialed. So I appreciate all my sponsors and Foxhole and Northeast Wealth Management. I've got definitely the long list of sponsors that have helped me get here and keep me going. So I appreciate them more than they.
That's awesome, man. I'd like to give a shout out myself to Summit Rejuvenation and Strokes Gained Electrolytes and Renew Med Spa. So, James, I appreciate you coming on. Congrats again on the engagement, brother, and play well this year, will you?
I appreciate it. See ya.